We're supposed to read between the lines.
Jesse,
What?
you're so funny. All right, let me just check one more thing. Let me try it this way. Can you guys hear me okay now?
Yeah, we can hear you.
All right, let me see if we can get the video. One more chance.
Yep.
Now we can hear.
Working.
It is?
Let's pull back on that for a second. I fell asleep while you were talking and I have no idea what's happening. Huh?
I've got a stupid question. It's actually like a really smart question, but I was wondering if I say stupid beforehand, does that make me like kind of modest? Is that like sort of charming thing to do, right?
Let's pick that up in the next meeting. I need a few days to figure out what we're talking about. But will this scale? One of the managing directors once used that phrase in a meeting, so now I use it all the time.
Sorry, this is just a work email I have to answer. I'm actually playing words with friends with everyone else in this meeting but you. Do you know a four-letter word for long-winded?
If there's an outside chance, you might be right. You're wrong. You're definitely wrong.
I think what you're trying to say is, so what I'm gonna do is take that idea and then make it sound like it was mine.
Let's try to make this viral, okay? I just heard about this site called reddit.com. Can we get on there?
I think we should make this a cross-platform opportunity. I watch Shark Tank. Let's take this offline.
Yeah, can we pick this up again? Just maybe 15 minutes after Never Again.
Oh, that's one idea. It's actually the one idea that sucks the most, so thank you.
This might be off topic. This is off topic, and it's gonna be a while.
All right, great meeting. So just please send me all your ideas before EOD. This meeting could have just been an email, but I'm very lonely.
Okay. So who's excited about the workforce at this point? Oh, my computer hates me. So the whole concept, guys, is literally what you're about to enter into, especially right now. It's just a whole new world. And I think what I want you to do is not only to be successful in your internship, but I want it to be one of those situations where you have a choice to either take this on as something where you grow relationships, because the reality is this: when people find jobs and work, they don't always keep, and there's studies on this, right? They don't always keep, like, their salary isn't always the biggest impact. The benefits aren't always the biggest impact. The work isn't even the biggest impact. But building relationships and managing those relationships effectively not only drives success, but it also allows you to really point where you want to go and make sure you're on the right trajectory. So we're going to cover preparing for your internship. We're going to talk about day one and beyond, how you show up for work, what that means right now with COVID, and how we can make sure that you're effective in that, and really how to manage your performance thoroughly. Everything from SMART goals all the way through performance meetings, and then how in advance you can strategically plan to leave. Because I think that's one of the biggest things that people miss, is using their summer internship is a platform for future. Some of you guys are in programs that, yep, it's a pipeline to full-time. Some of you may want to stay there. Some of you may not want to. How do we make sure that no matter what, you are successful, you're getting a reference, you end up coming away with what you need to go to the next level, and really make sure that your MBA was worth it, okay? All right, so for most of you guys, you have your internship. For those that you don't, I know there are only a couple of you. I know you're still working on it. There's plenty of time. There's still a lot of companies hiring. We'll get there. But I want you to look at the big picture now. I want it to be something where you're not just looking at some of the basics of the little things that you can do, but we're looking holistically. So we're going to cover some basics and some ground that we've already covered before. And then we're going to go a deep dive into how to actually manage that performance, okay? So one of the things that we've obviously learned more now than I think within the last couple of months, right? Like, it's just been crazy the last couple of months, but technology has clearly impacted our world. And we have a bunch of knowledge workers that are in the workplace. But now more than ever, especially for you guys, we have to figure out how to get you guys ingratiated and ingrained into a corporate culture that you may not be showing up to every day from a technological perspective, right? Like that's the only place you're showing up. It's not physical, it's technological. So how does that virtual setting look? What does that look like when they do potentially transition you over to bringing you in, if that's even a possibility? How can you make that transition effectively, right? So understanding your technology and what that looks like is going to be really crucial. And even doing an assessment on where you are technologically and what you need to do in advance for that is important. Before we even get to that, I want to cover the generations, because I think technology also has its parameters in terms of generations. So because of the technology changing and how people are now using it, and because of all the stuff that's going on with COVID and Zoom becoming, the popular thing, you're going to be working with all different types, right? We've talked about this a little bit before, but I think it's really important for you guys to understand this is the craziest corporate culture that we've ever had, in the sense that there are 4 and sometimes even 5 generations if you're going to a smaller business, where there are 5 generations in the workforce, all very adapted and changed by the historical events that built them up, which means they all communicate very differently just by the simple nature of the events that surrounded how they grew up. And that means you need to be able to accommodate all of those different work styles and different communication styles and different values. And so to do that, you actually have to understand a little bit about them so that you don't look naive, especially you're gonna have to be present in a virtual setting, right? So we wanna make sure that you're aware of what that looks like, okay? So I just wanted to give a quick recap on the generations so you know what that looks like. So if anyone brings it up, it's a hot topic for a lot of people these days. They're doing a lot of it and like intern stuff. I'm actually, every summer I go to Credit Suisse and I do an intern generations talk every summer. So it's like a big deal for a lot of companies. It's one of like the lunch and learns. But so you see like the traditionalists, they're typically 74 years or older. You'll have a couple of those in the workforce. Baby boomers are pretty high right now. They're making up probably 1/3 of the population. It's slowly going down. Gen X is starting to pick that up. That's me. We are definitely those that were around in like the MTV world. We'll talk a little bit about that. And then there's a transition between Gen X and millennials because they're so different. And so you'll see a little bit of that. Sometimes they call it Zennials. And then millennials, some of you are millennials, some of you not, 25 to 39. And typically with that, I think you millennials get a bad rap. We're going to talk a little bit about that. And then Gen Z is actually in the workforce now. Those are folks, if you are 24 or under, you are part of that generation. And even if you are not, you will be working with people that are other interns or are recently in the workforce that are part of these generations, right? So that's why we're covering this. This is a very big chart. It is not for you to digest in this. It's just to cover some basics. Why I wanted to cover this is this. You have everybody from the boomers who they got their jobs, promotions were a job perk. They weren't, they weren't like the traditionalists that stay there for 30 years, but they're the ones that have been there for a long time. And if you walk in and you come up with an idea straight off the bat and you're like, oh, have you tried this? Those are the ones that are going to look at you cockeyed and be like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Not because you don't know what you're talking about, but because they worked really hard for it and they don't think that you know that information. So you need to be aware of that, right? So they have a strong work ethic. They're really competitive. And then they like group discussion and collaboration. But Gen X then is very different than that. They're very centered on individualism. They are independent. They really don't like to be bothered. They like to kind of go do their own work and come back. They're pretty tech savvy. If you're a boomer, you really want to have an in-person conversation or on the phone. If you're Gen Xer, you probably want to do text, email. I'm older, so I prefer face-to-face in a lot of situations. A lot of you know that. If you are someone who appreciates work-life balance, you can thank the Gen Xers for that. You'll see a lot of that. Those are the people that right now have younger families like myself, where That is the most important thing. And a lot of their career and business decisions that they're making every day come out of that. And you'll see that in the choices and the values that they're making, even the decisions and how they bring ideas forward. Millennials, they like the credit, right? Typically. And remember, these are generic. Doesn't mean that you maybe don't fit into another category just because your age is different, but work matters to them. But they prefer experiences over things. And then Gen Z prefer things over experiences. So it's one of those things where you've got to kind of understand everybody you're working with. And millennials will typically, I'll never forget the first time I got a text message telling me someone wasn't coming to work because they were sick. That was something that was really shocking to me as a Gen Xer, as a manager. So that's something we're going to talk about because I want you to see all the different patterns in that. So millennials like texts and IMs, typically technology is pretty fluent for them. Gen Z actually is a mixture because they're Gen X babies. They are a mixture of kind of face-to-face and text. So they could do both. If you're going to have a very difficult conversation with them, you need to talk to them in person. So going over those quickly, but this is because it's not the focus of the conversation, okay? It's just to give you some idea of some communication styles. And really why is because the values that they have, like I said, they will bring those to the table. That is why it is such a big deal from a corporate positioning for you to understand who you're talking to, whether it's generationally, their position in the company, how that impacts other people, and we're going to talk about how you can get to all that information, but those values of how they're making those decisions and really working through them. And a lot of that encompasses where they've been and how they're going, right? So then they're going to either communicate that to you the way that they best know how. And so understanding and not taking it personal is really important, and being able to open up and ask questions, especially if you're in a virtual setting, you need to always ask questions, because that's going to help in terms of setting the expectations of how well you're doing and your relationship with not only your manager, maybe the mentor they gave you if you didn't get one, the mentor you choose, which we're going to talk about that, and then even the team that surrounds you, because setting those crucial expectations about who does what and how things are going to be put out. And we're even talking about if you're having a meeting with your team and people have action items from it, making sure that there are clear expectations and guidelines of, okay, I just need some clarification, because setting those expectations are crucial. And these are the challenges, the values, the styles, and the expectations that often lead to a lot of people being unhappy in their jobs or not being successful when they manage their performance in a company. So this just kind of gives you a write me, call me, email, text me. They're all different, but in the end, it doesn't matter, because we're going to help you figure out how to make sure that you're ready for your internship. Okay, so we're going to prepare for the first day. We're going to talk about how to show up again. We're going to talk about managing your performance, and then we're going to talk about being strategic to your departure. So I just wanted to re-hit those. Any questions at this point? Good, awesome. If you have them, just spit them out. I'm not going to be looking at the chat, so let me know. Okay, so for preparing for day one and beyond, this looks like a bunch of jumble on a page, but I really just want you to think about it this way. We talked about your interviewing, right? You guys worked hard. You did a lot of pre-work for it. You looked at the companies, you researched who you were going to be interviewing with, sometimes what interview questions they asked. Now is your time, especially in COVID-19, to understand where the company is positioned, who they are, how they're impacting. Are they doing outreach? Are they part of the community right now? Are they letting some people work from home? If they're in healthcare, what does that look like? You need to be doing such strategic research. You need to understand where they are on the S&P and how they're doing financially. You need to understand what parts are impacting supply chain, what parts are impacting marketing. You need to know from a research perspective, any kind of Googling you can do to look them up. That's what you need to do right now. It's almost like a whole nother phase of interviewing so that you are prepared walking in, so you don't walk into asking a question that's a total landmine when you get there. And that's where we're going to talk a little bit about that and how to prepare and make sure that you're finding people that you can ask difficult questions to. But you need to be able to understand your department and the company and how they fit together before you get there. If you're having conversations with your manager already, awesome, great, good for you, I'm proud of you. If you are not, I highly encourage you to reach out to them and just say, hey, I'd love to have a coffee chat or touch point before I come on, only 10, 15 minutes, or an email saying, hey, I'd love to know if there's anything I can prepare ahead of time or anything that you can see the department, anything you can share from the department or things that you guys are focusing on this summer so I can better prepare myself. Nobody ever took that the wrong way when you wanted to be more prepared, right? It just shows that you're a go-getter and that you're really looking forward to the experience. And maybe you can bring something to the table that they haven't thought about. So that research sounds kind of like, okay, Jane, thanks for giving me work. But the reality is that work is really, especially right now, so important, especially when you're looking at an environment that you will be virtual for a lot of you. And the other part of that is how to make sure that you're not asking questions that maybe you should know the answers to, or people that are sensitive to those questions, because there'll be people that are so busy working and kind of reworking and, you know, pivoting everything that they possibly can to make sure that their team, including you, has the work they need. They're doing a great job. So that's number one. Then we need to plan in advance. And what that means typically, if you are one of those people that are eventually going to go into work, awesome. Don't be that person that never did like the dry run of it. That is a mistake that I can't tell you how many interns make. And it's kind of like with your interview, right? Like I've told you guys this before, but the reality is you show up late, you don't get a second chance. If you're going to GSK corporate and they eventually have you on site, there are like 20 buildings out there, or like Cisco or NetApp. Like you got to know where you're going. And so know that ahead of time and make sure you're in the right building, the right place, and the right time. You're giving time in advance. If you're one of those people that's just going to be virtual and you know it, it's already set in stone, or you know you're at least going to start virtually, what kind of technology do you need? How is it downloaded? How are you getting the information from them? That's the kind of stuff I'd be reaching out to your manager and just making sure from an onboarding perspective that you're not annoying, but you're asking questions that are effective. Hey, day one, I want to be able to contribute to the team. What kind of software do I need? What kind of information do I need? I know there's going to be an onboarding checklist. Is there anything that I can do to make sure I'm downloading specific things? And once they give that to you, go through the checklist, run the software, right? Like you're not most likely going to get a laptop from them in the beginning. It's just not going to happen. So make sure that everything is up to par on your computer and that it's ready to go. It sounds like such a simple thing, but imagine if you're in your first day and you've got a meeting and you've been using Zoom this whole time and someone's using WebEx or Microsoft Teams and you never really did download it because you didn't need to, and you're the one that can't get on. You look like you don't know what you're doing. And that's the first impression for a lot of people. So just make sure you're taking the time to do that. It's a simple step. The next thing I would do, especially right now, I would talk to previous or current employees. So if you know people on the team, I would talk to them a little bit about what the culture shift has been since COVID. See if you can take someone out for a coffee break. I mean, I know that's kind of dorky, but a lot of people do have time on their hands right now and that are completely willing. I don't know for some of you if you were in the Uncertain Times seminar, but I mean, even some of the most famous athletes and celebs are showing up to college classes all over the country because they have nothing better to do. So people are really willing right now to give their time very fluidly and kindly. So with that, reach out to people. If there's an alum there that you connected with and at, you know, Blue Cross, or if there's someone that you talked to at NetApp, talk to them and find out, okay, how have the adjustments been with COVID? What's going on? What's the situation like? How has the impact been on business? Talk to them openly, find out so you can get a better understanding and really kind of find out where you can go and hit the ground running, because like I said, the more you know, that's part of doing that research. And then review the job description. I've told you guys a million times that job descriptions, they come and they sit in front of you, but the reality is you are going to be doing more than your job description, and hopefully so. And that means that they're utilizing your talents and you're able to speak up to what those strengths are. So I would review that and kind of highlight the things that you like to do, maybe star a couple of the ones that you don't, so that when you're handling your one-on-one meetings, which you're going to ask your manager to have regularly, you're able to tackle, okay, I've done this, this, and this as part of the job description, and this is part of my SMART goals. What do you think about me maybe taking something new on? So it allows you to move and breathe and actually focus on where you want to go rather than just a bunch of bullets sitting in front of you. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, review LinkedIn profiles. If there are people on the team you don't know, look them up. That's really it. Especially in this virtual environment, the more you can learn about people and try and connect with them. Don't be creepy stalkers, but definitely look to try and connect, right? I think that's really important, even before you get there. In this setting, I almost think you're kind of lucky. It's almost like nothing's off limits right now in terms of connecting. So if you look someone up and you see that they've got, 5 other team members that have been looked up, or where it shows similar pages under LinkedIn, connect with all of them. It's not hard. How you show up to work. Okay. So some of this may be goofy, and I get that. Your attire, especially in a virtual session. I don't know about you guys, but I have really relaxed on my attire. I normally wear my hair up and I'm in a bunch of sweats. So if you're showing up, obviously you need to make sure that you're fitting the culture. And part of that is, I even had someone ask me the other day, well, even if it's my first day and my first meeting, should I really show up in a suit virtually? Yeah, you should. Because, hey, I know it sounds goofy, but like you'll never get that first impression back. It's kind of like always overdoing, right? We've talked about it before that if you're the one that shows up to a cocktail party in jeans, it's pretty uncomfortable. But if you're the person that shows up to a cocktail party and you can kind of peel the jacket off and a couple other things, you feel a lot more comfortable, right? So I'd rather you overdress. And then if you see people kind of laxed as the summer continues, don't be that lax person. You're on a job interview all summer. So it may be something where, okay, sure, you're wearing shorts from the waist down and that's fine. But up top, you need to look professional. Look showered, look shaved. If you can cut your own hair, do it. I cut my husband's last week. Don't do that if you haven't done that before. But yeah, so I just think really like if you can, or you have roommates or whatever, try and do whatever you can. Make sure that you look as polished as you would if you were in present. And then if you think about your virtual presence, I'm gonna send you guys backgrounds, okay? So if you see this picture here, John actually did this, and it's, we've got a template that we use. I'm gonna send you guys a video of how to do like this specific NC State template, or you can do it whatever. If you already know how to do virtual backgrounds, that's fine, that's awesome. I personally don't here because I have a 9-year-old child popping in and out, and so it just looks like a floating head when I do it, so it's super awkward because that's our workspace. But for you guys, if you're there, do something professional. Let people know who you are by having this, up that I'm from NC State University or I'm an intern for such and such group. You're going to be on bigger presentations and bigger virtual meetings than you've been before. So have something that says who you are a little bit and maybe even have your name in it. When you're in those conversations, these are simple, basic things. Eye contact. Be the person that's looking at the camera, please. People pick that up, they notice it. Smile, please. It's like anything with like a virtual interview, right? Like smile, presence, sit up, be engaged, nod. If I don't know if you guys know this, but especially with Zoom, I was really not super excited to find this out, but with Zoom, apparently, and I know WebEx and a bunch of others do this too, I can tell what you're doing right now. I can pull up the report and find out if you're actually on Excel, if you're paying attention to me, how much you're paying attention to me, if you're online doing something else, if you're doing homework. It tells me everything. So as part of a job interview for the summer, if you don't think there are going to be certain managers that look that up to see how you attended something, think twice. This is like best foot forward. You guys have worked so hard. I want you to think about a year ago. and where you guys have been. And just little simple things of getting to now where you now picked a concentration. You've worked so hard to get here. You've got your internship. You're going to go. You want to be successful. So make sure you're doing the basics to do that. Be prompt and present. Don't ever be that person that's late, especially in the virtual setting where someone's like, oh, someone just joined us. It sucks to be that person that joins late unless you've got something worked out with your manager because you have back-to-backs or a client meeting or something like that. Don't be late. Definitely speak up in meetings. I think one of the most important thing is you guys have a voice. You're there for a reason. You're there to help provide solutions. Speak up. Show leadership. Show that you can answer questions and step in. Don't step on people's toes when you're coming up with suggestions. Be very careful in terms of, so I don't know if you guys have thought about this before, and maybe you have, so I don't want to speak out of turn, but I was thinking about this. Find out ahead of time. If you've got an idea, take it to your manager in your one-on-ones that you're going to create. That's a great way to introduce it to the team, right? Because then you're not just putting them on the spot of something that maybe they tried before and didn't work. So speak up and show leadership, show the idea of being able to provide solutions, maybe even if they're out of the box. Any questions on that? All right, SMART goals. Have you guys had these before? Okay, cool. What I want you guys to do is when you get your job descriptions, here's what I hate about internships. And I'm just gonna tell you this. As someone who's been a manager of interns before, I will give you your goals for the summer. Not really fun, right? So I want you to be able to not only get your goals from your manager, but I want you to take your job description and what you want out of the summer and have a conversation the first week you're there with your manager and say, I've come up with some SMART goals. I don't know if you're gonna have additional ones for me, but here's what I was hoping to discuss today, what your expectations are for the summer, how you want me to manage those from a goal perspective. And then also, would I be able to contribute some of my goals in the process of that? And if you do that in that way, it actually helps you really get to having some tangible, practical, solution-driven things that you're walking away, especially in a summer here where it's not going to be in person, where you can show work. That's what I want you guys to be able to do. If at any point you're struggling with those goals or you're there your first week and you're like, Jane, I have no idea what you're talking about. I really don't know how to do these. Email me. I'm available. Karen and I can help you. We can sit there and go over what exactly you need to do and how to make sure that you've got these goals that have real results and real answers. And I'll actually give you an example of some SMART goals here in a little bit, just so you guys can see them. But don't underestimate getting goals from your manager and asking, what goals do you have for me? And writing those out and following up with an email of, here are the goals you had for me. Here are some additional goals that I was thinking of that I might be able to achieve for you. Okay? It sounds simple, guys, but if you don't do it, you're leaving yourself to somebody else to control your summer. When you first get there, I want you to ask your manager for regular one-on-ones. Now, in the virtual setting, they should be doing this anyway, to be really honest. But the reality is this. I want you to walk in and I want you to say, I'd like to have at least 15 to 20 minutes a week. I know your schedule's very busy, but if I could put a recurring meeting on your calendar to make sure that I'm doing everything that I need to be doing to be successful and make sure that all my goals are aligning with what you guys need me to do, that would be wonderful. And so you put that proactively on the calendar. I also suggest if you have a team lead, so sometimes your manager is not the same person as your team lead. And sometimes your manager will be giving your team lead delegation to you. So that means you've got 2 people you need to be having meetings with, right? So I highly suggest any type of meeting that you can get on the calendar with people that are going to be making decisions about your future. You absolutely do it. Not day 10, week 3, the first week. It's almost like the first part of the conversation that you guys have with them when you're creating what you're doing and how that flow is going to go. And then when you start having these regular meetings, You own the meetings, right? So I need you to know that. So it's not just, here are my priorities. Here's what I'm working on right now. I have a little time on my hands if you need me to pick something else up. I was also wondering what feedback you have on ABC. What have I done at this point? Or what feedback or what gaps or areas do you see that I need to improve on? Always ask that question. Ask how they can develop you. If you run your meetings like this, you will not only impress your manager, but if you take that feedback and you don't take it personally and you action it, you will not only be successful, but you'll be one of the people that they say, okay, maybe this summer's the summer where our program is, we can only convert the top 10%. You will be part of that top 10% if you continually look at feedback, find solutions, and the feedback they give you, that you actually follow through and action it, okay? And find out where the gaps are so that you can improve on it. And show that by coming back in each meeting and saying, hey, this is what we talked about last time. Here's what I've done since. Here's what I'm working on now. What else can I do to help out the team? And raise your hand. Any questions on that? These meetings are really important. And I hope you guys really understand how important they are to build credibility and really get you in a good place. The next thing is when you're managing your performance, to build a strong relationship, especially in this situation. So because we're working with different generations, why don't you ask your manager the best way to reach out to them? And what I mean by that is everybody has work preferences. When you guys get into your teams and you guys are sitting there in work groups, don't you often go through, and if you don't, that's fine, but maybe you should. How do you like to be communicated with? Are we going to do a group me? Are we going to do text chain? Like what are we going to do emails back and forth to each other? Are we going to do a Google Doc? Are we going to do Microsoft Teams? You're asking those questions because you're organizing it. Well, you're coming into the fold. So asking your manager, how do you like to be communicated with? Do you prefer email? Do you prefer phone calls? Do you prefer me to IM you? Do you prefer me to G-chat you? Like, what does that look like? Do you prefer setting up regular meetings? I won't be able to just pop in frequently. What does that look like for you so I can make sure that I'm accommodating that? And if I have an urgent need, how would you like, if you like normal emails, how would you like it if I have something that's kind of a priority that you needed me to get done, I've got a catch, would you like me to call you instead? Find out what their work styles and their communication styles are so that you can accommodate it. And then be willing to look at them and say, well, just so you know, I work best with long emails, or I work best with processing information. So I'll do my very best to make sure that I'm accommodating what you need from a communication style. And just, this is what I do really well with. So I'll try and make sure that I'm incorporating that in our communication. Very easy, very simple. These are things that if you don't have self-reflection and have awareness of, this is how you're being evaluated out over the summer. I've literally sat there and people have been like, that was one of the first questions that person answered or asked me. And not only did it create a building process relationship with me, but it built the team up and we all figured out a way to communicate. And that person is someone we want to hire for sure, right? So engage to understand your manager's work preferences is obviously important. But then when you're having your one-on-one meetings with them, it's okay to ask them what their goals are and how your summer goals and your summer project aligns into that goal. Because if you're a solution for them, which you want to be, you need to understand what their end up goal is too, right? And they're not always going to tell you. So if they're open to sharing with you, it's really important to understand, A, how you fit in the puzzle and how the work you're doing impacts their work. Because if you're not successful, they're not successful, and vice versa. And so if you don't know that, you can't anticipate their needs or what they need, or what they're looking for, or what solutions might be better for them, or how you can, raise your hand and say, oh, I noticed you talked about this the other day. I know that nobody's got a dashboard for that. That's something I can do in my extra time. Those are the kind of things that they're little things, but if you're looking at a performance, these are the things that are gonna stand out. And I'm telling you from a conversion perspective, I managed Credit Suisse's internship program in 2008 and 2009 during the Great Recession. You look at people who do the extra mile, especially right now from a conversion perspective. So think about these little things. Some of you guys will have formal midsummer evaluation processes. That's just part of it. If you have a shorter condensed internship, I get it. If it's like one of those things, I know several of you are having those, that's fine. If you've got your meetings kind of set up with your manager, great, that's fine. Nothing's gonna be a surprise to you. You should set up the first week on the calendar, a midsummer evaluation that's on the calendar for, say, you start in May, make sure it's there in July. Make sure it's on the calendar in July. And even if it's something that they solicit or don't solicit, you're going in and you're getting that information so you have no surprises, and that you can make sure that you're steering that conversation and getting a good reference, or having conversations about where you potentially could go in the organization if you're liking what you're doing, if you're not liking what you're doing, and being very careful how to explain that and walk through that. But having those open conversations in that midsummer evaluation to formalize the fact that you're working really hard, that you're adhering to the goals, and here's where I am on this goal, here's where I am on that. It helps someone understand. If you stay fresh and relevant, you're gonna be someone they wanna hire. If you fade away and don't do some of these things, you're someone I never got to know because I don't have the time to reach out to you. So think about that. In these meetings and in the summer evaluation process, one of the things that you should do that I didn't really mention earlier, but if you have some time in the beginning, meet everybody on your team, find out what they do and how one position impacts the other, right? And then as you're raising your hand to help them out, discuss your accomplishments when you're in that midsummer evaluation process. I helped so-and-so with this. It really helped me learn this part of the business, which now leads me to think that this might be something I could do down the road, or really could help participate in the last couple of weeks and help really maybe jump in on that project and see how that works. So be able to toot your own horn, be able to talk about your accomplishments, be able to articulate them and say, I have done this, this, and this. And that means that you're following that and you're almost tracking it every week. Especially in this virtual setting, guys, I think that one of the biggest things that you possibly could do that could benefit you, I made some of my interns do this. Every week, at the end of the week, just write a couple of your accomplishments in an email and send it to yourself. Takes 2 minutes, but that way you've got it, then it's ready for your next meeting with your manager, so you can just quickly discuss it, especially as things get busier for you, in the hopes that you're getting more engaged and more involved in the projects and delivering on things. So make sure that you're doing that, because from an accomplishment perspective, that's really, that's crucial. And being able to say what your accomplishments are. If you're one of those people that you're at your midsummer evaluation and you don't have anything yet to show, we should have had a conversation way before. That's why those weekly meetings with your manager are going to be important, because you've got to keep them updated on where you are. And if you're one of those people that did something early on or had a project early on and you're kind of done with it, or you did what you could with it, or you're waiting on somebody else and they're not getting back to you, you need to make sure that you're not causing a problem, but you're saying, what else can I do while I'm waiting for this? And if you don't have anything to show by midsummer, I don't know what to tell you. Like, you need to be able to have some things, right? No questions with that, right? Awesome. Okay. The next thing is, if you are given a bunch of work, right? So if you're given priorities, you're given your goals, the expectation setting and that communication style and the values we talked about earlier, the challenges with people in the workforce, establish your priorities, right? So make sure that what you're doing is you are establishing, okay, so I see that you've given me this, this, and this. I'm thinking that this might be the first thing of importance. And when do you need to have that back by? This is a question that a lot of people don't ask. And then all of a sudden they're stuck in a situation where it was something that the manager's expectation was that it was going to be due 2 hours ago, or the manager's expectation is that you spent more time and put more effort into it and it would be due next week. And it's something you got done quickly because it was the only thing you had on your plate. Well, you need to be able to understand what their expectations and timelines are and say, when do you need to get that back by? Because it gives you an idea of the scope of work that they really want you to do. And with that, be flexible and eager. Jump up, raise your hand, make sure that you're looking at it from a perspective of, I want to be engaged, I can do this. What other things do you have on your plate? I can jump in, right? But those two questions, when you get assignments, especially if you're going to be getting a lot of stuff through email, or say you have one-on-ones with your manager, or you're getting assignment from a teammate that's delegated out to you, it's okay to follow up with an email in this environment just to double check, especially when it's something that you don't know, right? So I think it's really important to know that. I'm so sorry the printer keeps going off. My husband is printing a bunch of stuff. Sorry, guys. I don't know if you can hear it. Anyway, so understand those questions are really crucial and important. And then the personal influence with it, right? So elevate yourself, improve. You can, handle the flexibility of those deadlines. So if they come back at you and they say, oh, that was something I needed, I need that in like 10 minutes. Okay, I won't be able to get everything comprehensively, but I will do my best to make sure I get whatever you possibly, some of the more important facts. Or if you're turning something in, let them know, hey, I was able to do this, this, and this. I still have some outstanding things here. If you have more time, I'm happy to, if there's more time to it, I can put that in. But just let them know. Over communication never hurt anybody in an internship. Never. Unless you're the person that's reaching out to the CEO to ask for a coffee chat. Don't be that person. I've had to fire that person before, so don't be that person. But I'm telling you, in terms of, you guys are smart. You've worked on your MBA experience so far. You understand the expectations of business. I want you to walk in and I want you to feel very holistically comfortable with asking difficult questions and being a participant. I don't want you to be people that aren't proactive and part of the conversation, okay? Because there will be interns that are like that and they're not going anywhere, okay? So this is gonna be a little bit harder for you guys from a virtual setting, but one of the things in managing your performance is building those relationships. We talked about it. Talked about how 65% of the people would pick people that they work with over salary. I know that sounds crazy, but LinkedIn published it last year. So if you're engaging in conversation, small talk, especially in a virtual setting, right? It's okay to have that, but know when to work, right? Know when to go after the work, know when it's a casual environment where you guys are teaming up on things and having a brainstorming session. So know when to engage on the formal side and know when to engage on the informal side. And that's where I think too, if you're in the beginning and you can have some coffee chats with people and get to know them a little bit, you'll find out who the odd birds are. You'll find out who the people that don't want to engage. You'll find out who the people that are going to be like word vomiting everything about the team all over you. Be careful about those conversations. Don't engage in gossip. Don't do it. Especially, I told you I can tell you everything that you're doing in the Zoom call right now. Everything in a virtual setting is documented, right? So I've had to fire people for that as well, whether they're IMs or whatever. Like, you can't talk inappropriately about other people. I'm not suggesting that you will. You may have someone difficult that you're working with. I get it. We've all had that. It's part of the deal. But I think if you just remember that you want to engage in conversation and be a positive part of the conversation in an informal and like the informal part and the formal part, so that you're having some of the, hey, how was your weekend? Or did you actually go to the grocery store and get toilet paper? Whatever that looks like, right? But don't do the gossip. Don't do it. It's going to hurt you. You guys know that. But it's something that you'd be surprised how many times people go in and they get caught up, especially when they get closer to one teammate than the other. And that's kind of what happens. So just be careful. Especially, this world is really small. I would say good listening skills are really crucial in making sure that if you don't understand something, you're asking the questions to absolutely confirm and be concise about what is being asked. Listening is one of the biggest parts of being a good team member, being someone who's actively successful, and hearing the different dynamics that are going on are going to help you in understanding how you can be a part of that and fill a gap for them. And the other thing with that is that top performers, they always help their teammates. So if you ever see people in trouble or they're struggling or they've got a lot of things going on, and you guys are on a meeting, you can always send a personal chat to them and say, hey, I noticed you're doing this, this, and this. Is there anything I can help out with? What can I do? There are many times for several internships that you think you leave the last day and that they're still making decisions. They typically have already made those decisions. They've already had the calibration discussions and they've gotten feedback from everybody on the team, whether it be survey or an email, of how you contributed and what part of the team you were, so that they can make a decision if they want to give you an offer. Now remember, maybe you don't want to go there, but at the same time, you want the good reference from it, okay? So help out whoever you can around you. Find a mentor. This sounds super like, okay, I'm going to be virtual. It's not going to be easy. Find someone there that might be an alum or who's been in your position before or who's worked themselves up on the team, who used to be in the intern position. Talk to them. Get to know them. If it's someone even maybe outside your group, or maybe you decide to participate in a women's business network meeting and you find someone on there that's talking about roles of an organization and you really click with them, or you really, identify with what they're saying, reach out to them and say, hey, can we have a coffee chat, or can we have a discussion? I know it's virtual. I'd love to meet you in person, but I'm here interning for the summer and what you said was really wonderful. I want to just talk to you more about it, and do an informational interview with them. Mentors are people that will always be there for you and people that can guide you in ways that you do not know where the landmines are coming. And so these are people that you can eventually trust and really help out. And eventually, if you do go on with the company, they normally take you with you. If they, they take you with them. If they're escalating and getting promoted. So mentors are really important. And these are the people that you can ask, once you get comfortable enough, you can ask some of those difficult questions of, okay, my manager's being kind of difficult about this, and I just am not sure what he means by this, or she means by this, or I'm not sure how I can deliver on this. Is there any resources that you can tell me about? So these are the things that are really important to be able to have someone that you can rely on. And a mentor could be a teammate too. It could be your team lead. It could be your manager, but it's just someone that you can ask some of those questions to. Okay. All right. This one's kind of easy. Just do your job and work hard. I mean, it's never fun. And I know you guys have been there. I've talked to many of you about this. If you're on a team project and someone doesn't deliver their piece, right? And they haven't communicated or haven't done anything. So just do your job and do it well. And if you're struggling with something, be proactive about communicating. That's it. Work hard. If you're not doing a lot of work, and you feel like, because I do know that sometimes with internships, especially if they're virtual, you're going to be sitting there. Raise your hand, figure out ways to stay involved. Figure out ways to be engaged in groups, activities. That's when you reach out to alums all over the organization. Whatever you can do, but find ways to work hard. If you're not given that opportunity, find it, okay? All right, so be strategic about your departure strategy. There's a lot on one page. I'm sorry. That is kind of a lot. If you're having one-on-one meetings with your manager, your career aspirations should come up probably by the time your midsummer evaluation is up. And that should be not only the goals, but what do you see for me at, is this a place you can see me after graduation? Here are some of the things I like about this position. Here are the things I've been struggling with. I'm working to get better at that. That's another place to cover the gaps, but really talking about where you see it going. If you're one of those people, you're going into it and you're like, I'm really excited about this, but I'm not sure, I've never done marketing before. And I want to see what this leads to. You get in there, maybe you like some of what you're doing, but not the other stuff. Tell them. It doesn't mean that you're sitting there complaining, because that's not the way you're going to approach it. It's, here's what I do really well at. Here are the things that I know that I need to work on. Is there a role that also does A, B, and C? Because I also like that. Or I liked what so-and-so is doing over there on our team as well. would it be okay if I talk to them a little bit more about their goals and how they got to where they are? What happens is it opens up a dialogue for them to start, again, that job description is there, but then they start creating that job description based on who you are and what you can add and contribute to the team. So you're helping define what you potentially could get as a full-time offer. Do not underestimate that. So ask, if your goal is to work there after graduation, what do I need to do? What does this look like? How can I get better at this? If it's, you want to intern through the school year, understand what that looks like in terms of part-time. And is that something you guys would ever consider as keeping me on? Ask those questions. I think, if you don't ask them, it's okay, but you need to show that it's like, we've talked about this a million times. It's like dating. You need to show that you're interested. And then one thing is hiring managers don't always know what's going on. They don't. So you have to talk to the recruiters. So I would also highly recommend that you stay engaged and in touch with, there typically is a program manager for an internship program and the recruiter. Stay in touch with them over the internship. Those are the people that will onboard you, whether it's virtual or in person, whatever ends up happening. But stay in touch with them. Check in with them periodically. Those are the people that will know the positions before the hiring managers know them. And they know the timelines. So a hiring manager may be like, oh, we're going to make those decisions in October. Nope, the recruiter knows that August 10th is the day that they're doing the drop. So it's always good to stay in touch with both of them and ask, parallel questions. Build your network, make sure you're maintaining and staying, even after you leave, connect with people. We've talked about it before in the sense of, telling people happy July 4th, or hope you had a good Labor Day, or I started up classes and really was able to use the stuff that you taught me about this project in my marketing class. Let them know that. Keep in touch, maintain that network, and then make sure that you're building your LinkedIn profile based on the SMART goals that you put out. Obviously, Karen and I are going to help you guys on that, but just make sure that it's okay to put those up and even take it to your manager and say, does this look like everything I've accomplished over this summer? I just kind of want to get your view on it. That's part of being an intern. It's part of having that kind of questioning, like, I want to verify this and make sure you're comfortable with it. And then because referrals and references are so different nowadays, get a referral on LinkedIn from one of your teammates. Have them endorse you. Have them write a recommendation. Have your hiring manager do it at the end of the summer. Or even if you've done like a great job or someone you've partnered with, do it. Absolutely. And then when you maintain the contact, like I said, it can be very much, hey, how you doing? But at the same time, you want to make sure that you're strategic in your messaging and maintaining that contact, right? I want to work here. I'm very excited. Or I saw that there's the S3 programs opening up at NetApp, and we talked about that this summer. Would you be able to send me a reference? So be very intentional about your messaging and engaging with them and what you want to do in those aspirations, because it's not the first time they've heard it, right? So what questions do you guys have for me? Because that was an awful lot of me talking.
I have a question.
Yep.
So I was wondering, when we were talking about setting the SMART goals off your job description, what do you recommend if, say, like for NetApp, the job description wasn't specific to the job, it was specific to just the program itself, and then they put you into it? How do you address that? Do I reach out to the recruiter and ask if there was a specific spreadsheet or some bullet points that he gave her, or how do I approach that?
I love that question, Gina, because I'll be honest, I think probably almost every single one of you guys is probably in that situation where if you're going into a program, right? So here, two ways to do it. Have you been engaged with your hiring manager at all?
Post interview and post accepting a couple of times, like wishing him, like Happy New Year's and things like that, but nothing. I was supposed to go on campus, but since the COVID stuff has happened, that got rescheduled. So no, not really.
Gotcha. No, that's okay. So this gives you the perfect opportunity to do both. To
Okay.
reach out to the recruiter and just say, hey, I'm just checking in, whether that's Lee or whoever it is, and just check in and just say, I'm kind of looking at the job description. I'm trying to get prepared for the summer. But I think even more importantly, it gives you an opportunity to go to the hiring manager and just say, I'm really excited about this summer. I'm excited about the possibility of working, you know, all the possible projects I could work on. What are some things that you're looking at for me so I could maybe be better prepared, or any suggestions you have for me in advance? I know that this was the job description that was given to me, but if there are areas that I can focus on, you know, let me know. See what they say from a preparation perspective. And then what's going to happen is when you first get there, Gina, especially for you, this is where you set that meeting day 1, day 2 at the latest. And you don't wait, because you won't be able to do SMART goals without your manager. It's just not going to happen because it's such a generic thing. Do you know what I mean? And their projects are constantly changing. So it gives you that opportunity to say, hey, what do you want me to prepare for in advance, so that maybe you can get some ideas of what they're doing and get some ideas of what you could potentially, how you would be able to use that for what you want to do down the road. But then it gives you the opportunity to sit down with your manager and just say, what do you want me to accomplish this summer? What are the goals that you have for me? And would you be willing or okay that now I know some of the project and you're explaining it to me? Would you be okay if I came up with a couple of individual goals to maybe help support what you want me to do? And I think that that's where you come back a couple days later and just send the email. Here's what we discussed. Here are the goals that I have in place. But that's why those first couple meetings with your manager are really important. Especially because the reality is, whatever they gave the recruiter to recruit for you, that project, especially with COVID, could be out the door.
Yep.
So that's where reaching out to the hiring manager is the most important thing. And you can even say, you know, if you want to put me in the direction of one of your one of the teammates, I'm happy to reach out to them too and kind of hear what projects are going on. And that way you can kind of engage with a couple people in advance as well. Or even, like I said, the first week you get there is fine.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like such a simple thing, but one of the worst things I think for any of you guys would be if you go into a situation where it is kind of a vague internship and things have changed so much in the work environment where they're not able to give you any real clear direction. That's why be okay to ask for it. If you don't have it, or you don't have a specific project, or you're kind of all over the board, make sure they are seeing in those weekly meetings exactly what you have lined up, because of what we're working on, how it's impacting the team. Because if you're not doing that, they're not aware, especially if they can't just walk by your cube and see you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So we were told that before onboarding, it's gonna be a recruiter, the single point of contact. Is that still okay to contact the hiring manager?
Yeah, what they're saying is that's the person that's got, so the hiring manager doesn't want to know what time you need to start, what you need to bring, how you're going to fill out your pay stub. They don't need to know any of that. That's why they're sending you to the recruiter, because that's the person that's going to do the onboarding. But the hiring manager is the person that's going to be assigning your project work, you're delegating your assignments, your responsibilities, your tasks. So that's why typically people are like, before you show up, because what ends up happening is you got 30 people emailing a hiring manager about when they're supposed to show up and what they're supposed to wear, and simple questions that the recruiter should be tackling. That's what that really means. So I absolutely, Erica, hands down would reach out to your manager and just say, really looking forward to the summer. So excited about the opportunity. If there's anything that you guys are working on, or I can hear in advance, or have a quick call to just kind of touch base and hear what's going on, I'd love it, so that I can start thinking about ways I can prepare and make sure that I can, hit the ground running.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Hey, Jane, I have a question.
Yeah.
I've been in a situation where I've had an internship and the company failed to provide work to do, or meaningful work. And I've tried things like even reaching out to different departments and still not getting work, and the manager's not giving you work. What do you do in those situations?
So that's where I think it's so important, Kiara. If you're not having weekly, so So here's where it struggles, right? So like if you're not getting work and it's week 3 or 4, and then you go ask your manager for work, you've not been having those touch points. So you've not built the relationship. At that point, if you've already built the relationship and you're not getting the work and it's week 2 or week 3, you can easily go in and say, I just wanted to let you know, here's what I have on my plate right now. And really it's nothing that I haven't completed everything. I don't have any other work right now. What else can I do to make sure that I'm actively engaging and making sure that I'm giving you what you need this summer? And then put it off on them, right? Sometimes that works. Sometimes it doesn't. I can tell you right now, if you're an intern, you've got work to do because they've had to justify every position right now that people have. But it doesn't mean that people aren't monitoring that and making sure that it's valuable work, right? So that's where if you're showing up every week and literally saying, okay, here's what I'm working on, here's what I'm not working on, or even if it's in between those meetings and you're not working on anything, raising your hand saying, okay, you told me to reach out to you via email. That's your preferred method. I wanted to reach out and just let you know, I'm currently not working on anything. I know how valuable certain projects are. I've reached out to a couple team members. What can you encourage me to do to make sure that I'm contributing? And I think then you start reaching out to team members and asking them how to help. Do exactly what you did before, but you got to keep your manager engaged and involved. And then if you're struggling and you're not getting work at that point, call me because I'll tell you the next step of what to do. And that's a point where you go back to the program manager or the recruiter and you say, hey, I really appreciate it. I'm so excited to be here this summer. I don't want to cause any trouble. I've asked for work multiple times because I've had people come when I've had internships, right? And projects change and they'll come to me and they'll be like, I've got nothing to do. I'm so bored. Awesome. What do you want to do? And as a recruiter, I know the openings and the changes going on in the business. I can go to that manager and talk and say, look, I know they've already talked to you about this. They're not really working on a whole lot. Would you be okay? There's something over here where we didn't anticipate and we've got some work that you can do. Would you be okay if I split Kiara's time in doing that? And I can't tell you how often that's where you end up. And it's something that you love and you're happy with and stuff like that. So I've had that multiple times, or even having a situation where sometimes things don't fit as an internship, right? So that's being able to pivot. And so sometimes the recruiter or the program manager, they're the one that has the pulse. They have the pulse on everything. So if there is a certain point where you have to engage them from an internship perspective, but as long as you're keeping that relationship with them, Kiara, it doesn't come across like a complaint, right? Otherwise, if you just show up one day and you're like, I'm not doing any work. Okay, well, what are you doing about it? Because I don't know enough about you because we haven't engaged enough. So that's where that engagement is really important and just kind of checking in with people, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else have questions?
I just have a quick question of still not knowing if I'm going to be going there. I've actually been avoiding trying to ask in case if something does happen to lose it. And that's kind of, now we're getting to the point of, you know, moving. If it does go virtual, which they said they're trying to do, how do you manage the time zone difference? Like of what hours responsible of being at work and clarifying that?
I think it's one of the first conversations you have, Brittany. I think it's, okay, knowing that I won't be there and present, your typical hours are this, I'm on the East Coast. How would you like me to accommodate that? I'm happy to show up at the times that you have. I don't know if that's a flex. Like, I think just ask the question. I think you just have to, these are things that if you ask, what happens in a lot of these situations, people don't get comfortable to ask because they don't necessarily want to hear the answer, or they kind of want to do their own thing, or they think, I don't want to be that person that asks because I don't want them to think like I'm stupid or I don't know. That's not it at all. You're asking what their preference is. So because I'm on East Coast and you're Central Time, my question for you is just to make sure, would you like me to work Central Time hours, or are you okay if I work East Coast hours? What do you prefer? Easy question. And I think have those in the beginning when you're setting some of the ground rules of, hey, I want to have a really successful internship. I want to be prepared. I want to be ready for what you guys have, and make sure that I'm giving you guys everything that you need as an intern, and that I'm really delivering so you guys can see that I'm someone that you'd want to hire. I'd love to have a conversation about communication style. I'd love to have a conversation about when you need me to work. I'd love to have a conversation about who you should suggest that I engage with. Are there certain people on the team that I should be meeting with? Those should all be questions you ask day one to your manager. Okay? Especially with that, I think honestly, the reality is I think they're going to say work. Knowing where you're going, I think they'll probably say work whenever you want. So just make sure that you're present. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's such flexibility with this virtual environment right now. As long as, I would say, even if they said for you work East Coast hours, make sure you're as present as you possibly can on IM during those times where it's central time. Do you know what I mean? Okay. All right. These are some smart goals just to give you ideas. These are actually pulled from the S3 program. Shh, don't tell anybody. From NetApp. So just gives you an idea of some of the things that they call SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, actionable, realistic, and timely. All that stuff, right? So it's kind of like we looked at our bullets on our resume, and you don't want to have a vague bullet at the end of this. You want to have a tangible outcome. So how do you push yourself, especially in certain projects, to get there? If at any point you guys have those questions or you're having difficulty with some of the assignments they're giving you to make sure that you're getting things that you can use on your resume, we're around this summer. We're available. This is what we do. So we're happy to help you with that, okay? All right, any other questions?
One more question.
Sure.
It's so we're so used to drink a coffee, you know, water, whatever, when we are on meetings. How about eating and stuff? And not that I'm planning to eat, but I'm asking, what's the etiquette of your presence on the other side of the camera?
Yeah. So I mean, have you, yeah. So good question. I would definitely say eat in between, turn your camera off if you can for a couple seconds, if you're starving and you haven't had a chance because you've been in back-to-back meetings all day. I mean, the reality is you're in a virtual setting. And so a lot of things are pretty lax right now, but not eating kind of like a salad on a Zoom call, right? So I would just make sure that you're setting time aside in your calendar to eat if you need to do that, or setting specific times. There will be specific meetings where they'll be like, okay, we're having a happy hour, and you guys will have this. Everybody's doing this right now. I've had a lot of companies that I work with from a consulting perspective reach out and ask certain ways to engage their people. So they're doing happy hour, or best Zoom background, or bring your lunch today and let's just catch up and have a snack time and talk. Absolutely, you can bring food then. Not a big deal. I definitely would mute yourself when you're eating. Just it sounds so goofy, but you know, just little things to think about that you probably, you know, you don't realize until after you make the mistake. But I would probably not eat online or in front of anybody unless you see other people doing it. And the reality is you still kind of have to be a step up. So unless it's an engaged, like we're having a lunch session, bring your own lunch, which people are doing right now, I would probably stay away from the eating. If you need to step away and grab something real quick, you can.
Okay.
Cool.
And video, like if you turn on the video or not, I generally try to keep my video on unless everybody's off. But so if your boss or your manager is on, you should have your video on too, right? Every time.
And honestly, I think as interns, you guys should have your video on every time, because there's no other way that they're going to know who you are. In a virtual setting like this, you have to make every impact and build your brand in such a different way. Be present. You saw that as one of the bullets, but the reality is, I don't care if everybody, including your manager, has it off. Put your video on. Be present. Be the person that's there. If you're not feeling that well that day and everybody else is off, okay, sure, I get it. That's fine. But the reality is and you know, maybe that's week 4, right? But as much as you can be present so that people aren't like, who is that? Because how many of these calls, I can tell you, I've been on some of these big calls university-wide lately or company-wide, and you're like, I don't recognize that name at all. And like, that's how people recognize you right now. So put a name with the face, always be present. The people that are there and smiling and always there and looking at the camera, engaged, those are the people you remember. Those are the people you know. You know what I mean? And you're trying to make an impression on IBM. So I would be present. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Because I know some of the stuff is rudimentary, but the reality is I can't tell you how many people don't take this advice and they're just kind of like, oh, I don't need to do it. I'll tell you a couple people that did take the advice. If you ever want to talk to someone, second year, talk to Brian Pizzullo. He had this meeting with me last year. He did this presentation last year, and he basically told me that that is how he got such an excellent reference from Biogen and kept relationships. He did everything I told him to do. He made the meetings, he did the chats, he did the raising his hand when he needed to, he did SMART goals, he made sure that he was asking, hey, where do you want me to be? Here's where I want to be. How can we meet in the middle? That's how he ended up going to Deloitte and doing amazing this next year from a consulting perspective. That's where he's headed. And it's because he got such great references and work from Biogen to know how to transition that and make the best, most effective work out of it. So just know that this stuff actually works. And some of it's common sense, but some of it is just stuff that if you don't do, especially in this COVID-19, you're going to probably hurt yourself. So if you have questions, if you're struggling with anything, or if you're in an internship and you're like, I don't feel like I'm as effective, or I'm struggling with my manager, or I'm not understanding what they want me to do, and I've had 3 different conversations, call us. I am happy to help. I do this all the time. I don't just do this for you guys, but I've done this for companies. That's what I did for internships for years. I would figure out what people wanted and how to make good on it and what to do and how to make sure that they're having conversations with their managers, work on mobility. So I am here to help you. So is Karen. We're here all summer. I want you guys to be so successful. I want it so that if you want the option to convert your internship, that you make that happen, that you get whatever you need from the internship to decide on what your future should be and where you potentially can go. I just want you to be successful. And so I am happy to do whatever you need to make sure that that happens. And if there are questions along the way, we're here. Okay. Good. It's good to see your faces. I've missed a lot of you guys. If I don't talk to you, oh my gosh, that's crazy. If I don't talk to you, huge hugs, best of luck. I'm super excited for you guys and your internships this summer. I know you guys are gonna be awesome. If you have any questions or need anything, let me know for sure, okay?
Thank you, Jane.
Yeah, bye guys, take care.
Thank you.
Jane,
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.